Hi guys, welcome back to Echoes of History. Tonight, we will follow the slow, quiet journey of a medieval pilgrim, one of countless souls who left the safety of home to walk the long and uncertain roads towards shrines, chapels, and distant holy places. The day begins in darkness, long before the sun has climbed above the fields. A pilgrim stirs on a rough blanket spread across the corner of a village barn, the air damp with the scent of straw and the faint musk of animals. From the cold ground, his feet blistered from miles already walked, yet he rises without hesitation. Pilgrimage is not comfort nor ease, but endurance. He gathers his bundle, little more than a woolen cloak, a satchel of bread, and a wooden staff polished smooth by hand, and steps into the chill of morning. The village still sleeps, shutters drawn, hearths dark, but the pilgrim's feet already strike the road. It is a narrow path, rutted by cart wheels, slick with dew. The grass bends beneath the weight of moisture, and the fields beyond stretch into mist. Birds stir faintly in the hedgerows, their calls soft, tentative as though testing the air. His breath clouds faintly before him, his sandals dark with wet. The road is not empty. In the distance another figure walks, bent beneath a cloak, the pilgrim's badge, a simple scallop shell, pinned upon his shoulder. They do not speak, but the shared silence is itself a greeting. Many walk alone, but few walk entire. Solitary. Pilgrimage is a thread that binds strangers together, each step weaving into the same long fabric of devotion. As the light strengthens, farms stir to life. Smoke rises from chimneys, children appear at doorways, dogs bark faintly at the passing figures. Some villagers offer blessings to the travelers, crossing themselves, pressing a crust of bread into a hand, a jug of thin ale into waiting fingers. Others glance away, suspicious, muttering that pilgrims bring only dust. The pilgrim accepts both kindness and coldness with equal silence, and his feet continue forward. By midday, the sun burns faintly through the mist, though warmth never truly comes. The road widens, passing through woodland where the air smells of damp leaves and earth. The pilgrim's stomach growls, and he pauses to sit upon a fallen log, drawing bread from his satchel. It is coarse, dark, days old, but hunger makes no complaint. He eats slowly, sipping from a flask of water. Village well, then rises once more. Around him, the forest creaks and sighs, the sound of branches shifting in the breeze, the flutter of wings as birds dart overhead. Hours pass like this, measured not in clocks but in steps, in the rhythm of breath and the steady thud of staff upon soil. The road curves past a small chapel, its walls whitewashed, its roof sagging with age. A priest greets the pilgrim, offering a blessing and a few kind words. Inside, the chapel smells of wax and altar plain, its candles burning low. For a moment, the pilgrim kneels, whispers a prayer, and leaves a copper coin upon the altar. Then he rises, shoulders his satchel, and steps back into the road. The afternoon lengthens, shadows stretching across the fields, the air growing cooler. Other pilgrims join the path, an old woman with a rosary clutched tightly in her hands, a father guiding his child, a young man limping from blisters yet walking on. Together they move silently, their steps unbroken. Dust clings to robes, cloaks grow heavy with travel, faces grow hollow with fatigue. Yet there is comfort in the company, a quiet strength in the knowledge that the road is shared. By dusk, the road leads into a village. The air is thick with the scent of smoke and roasting meat, voices rising from taverns where travelers gather. The pilgrim finds shelter in a barn once more, or perhaps in the corner of a crowded inn if coin allows. He eats what little he has, drinks what drawn from the well, and lies down upon straw. Outside, the night deepens, stars pricking the dark, the sound of dogs barking faintly in the distance. Sleep comes not as comfort but as necessity, for at dawn the road will call again. And so the cycle continues, step after step, mile after mile, through rain and sun, through hunger and silence. The destination is distant, the shrine perhaps weeks or months ahead, yet each day is lived in the same rhythm of road, prayer, and endure. Pilgrim, this is life, unchanging, uncertain, yet filled with quiet devotion, a journey measured not in distance but in faith. The night lies heavy over the countryside, yet the pilgrim stirs before the first glimmer of light. The barn where he sleeps is filled with the soft rustle of straw, the faint shifting of a cow in its stall, the low creak of timber as wind presses against the walls. His cloak is damp, the wool stiff with dew, but he rises all the same. Pilgrimage allows no lull. Comfort. He stretches sore legs, rubs blistered feet, and gathers his few possessions, satchel, staff, cloak, before stepping into the cold breath of dawn. The village around him is still cloaked in silence. Smoke has yet to rise from chimneys, doors remain bolted, windows shuttered tight against the night's chill. The pilgrim's sandals strike softly against the dirt path as he makes his way toward the open road. Behind him, the barn settles again, animals shifting faintly, a roost. With a half-hearted crow. Ahead, the fields lie wrapped in mist, their edges blurred, their furrows glistening with moisture. Each blade of grass bends beneath droplets of dew, glinting faintly in the first pale light. The road is narrow, its surface rutted by cart wheels, softened by rain, worn by countless feet before his. He follows its winding course, his staff tapping softly against the ground, each step steady but slow. His breath clouds in the chill air, his stomach hollow from meals, yet his eyes are fixed forward. Pilgrimage is not measured in miles or hours, but in persistence, in the quiet refusal to stop. As he walks, the countryside begins to wake. A shepherd emerges from a low hut, his flock bleating as they are guided into the mist. A woman bends over a well, pulling water in a creaking bucket. A child runs barefoot across the yard, laughing despite the chill. Some glance toward the pilgrim, nodding faintly, crossing themselves, whispering bless. Look away, muttering about beggars, clutching their cloaks tighter as he passes. He accepts both kindness and suspicion with equal silence. To be a pilgrim is to endure the judgments of others as much as the weariness of the road. By mid-morning he finds company. Ahead, a small group of travelers walk together, an old woman clutching a rosary, her lips moving silently with each bead. A young man limping heavily, blisters raw on his feet, a father guiding his daughter, her small steps. Eager to match his stride, they greet him with a nod, a glance, and soon his steps fall into their rhythm. Words are few, but presence is enough. The road binds them, strangers joined not by kinship, but by devotion. They share bread at the edge of a field, tearing rough crusts with tired hands, passing a flask of water between them. The taste is plain, the water cool, yet hunger makes the simple meal rich. Birds call faintly from the hedgerows, their wings stirring the leaves, while pushes higher, warming the mist until it dissolves into air. The road stretches onward, unbroken, bending gently over hills, curving through woods where the scent of damp earth rises heavy. The pilgrim's feet ache, his shoulders burn from carrying his bundle, yet his steps do not falter. He listens to the rhythm of the road, the thud of staff against earth, the rustle of cloaks in the breeze, the soft murmur of prayers whispered under breath. Around him, the forest creaks and sighs, leaves dripping with yesterday's rain, branches swaying in the wind. The path narrows, climbing between roots, descending into valleys where streams cut across its course. Shoes darken with mud, cloaks grow heavier, yet they press on, steady as the hours. At midday they reach a chapel perched at the edge of a village. Its walls are whitewashed, its roof sagging with age, its bell silent. A priest stands at the door, offering blessings, his hands raised over each bowed head. The pilgrim kneels within. The floor cool beneath his knees, the air thick with the scent of wax and incense. Candles burn faintly, their flames trembling in the draught. The altar is plain, its cloth worn, its cup simple. Yet to the pilgrim it is enough. He whispers a prayer, leaves a copper coin and rises again. The village beyond stirs with life. Merchants call from stalls, children chase one another through the mud, dogs bark from behind low fences. Some villagers offer food, a heel of bread, a wedge of cheese, of ale. Others demand coin for lodging, for a place at their table, for a corner of their barn. The pilgrim accepts what is offered, endures what is withheld, and steps once more onto the road. The afternoon is long, the sun slanting low, shadows stretching across fields golden with grain. The pilgrim walks with his companions, their steps slow but steady, their voices rising now and then in snatches of song, in fragments of prayer. Dust clings to their robes, sweat beads upon their brows. There is comfort in the company, in the knowledge that each step is shared. Toward evening the sky dims, clouds gathering, the scent of rain sharp upon the air. They hasten their steps, seeking shelter before darkness falls. A hamlet offers rest, an inn with crowded benches, a barn with straw, a hearth where warmth seeps from low flames. The pilgrim eats sparingly, a bowl of pottage, a crust of bread, water drawn from the well. Around him voices murmur, prayers are whispered, children fall asleep upon their mothers' laps. He stretches upon straw once more, cloak pulled tightly around his shoulders, eyes heavy with fatigue. Outside the rain begins, tapping softly against roof and earth, steady as breath. The pilgrim listens as sleep overtakes him, knowing that at dawn the bell will toll, the road will call, and his feet will rise again. For pilgrimage has no true end, only the rhythm of days, the cycle of hunger and prayer, of walking and resting, of rising and enduring. Shrine lies ahead, distant and unseen, but the journey itself is already the act of devotion. The road is the prayer, the step the offering, the silence the song. And so the pilgrim sleeps, and the road waits, stretching onward into the night. The rain does not cease through the night. It falls in thin, steady lines against the thatched roof, dripping into puddles outside the barn where the pilgrim rests. Each drop strikes like a heartbeat, endless, patient, a rhythm that seeps into dreams. When he stirs before dawn, his cloak is damp again, his hair clinging to his forehead, his limbs heavy with weariness. Yet the bell from the village church begins its slow toll, and the road calls once more. He rises quietly, careful not to wake the others lying in straw. A few figures shift in their sleep, a father curling tighter around his child, an old woman murmuring prayers even in her dreams, a novice pilgrim clutching his staff as if it were part of his own body. The blanket slings his satchel across his shoulder and steps into the damp morning. The air outside is sharp, mist curling low over fields where cattle stir and crows cry from fence posts. The village is only just waking, smoke lifting in thin streams from chimneys, a dog barking faintly at the sight of travelers on the road. His sandals slap softly against wet earth, the sound merging with the distant calls of roosters, with the creak of cart wheels already rumbling toward the fee. Him as the day begins. From the far edge of the road, a small cluster of pilgrims emerges. 3 men in patched cloaks, their scallop shells pinned proudly, their eyes hollow with the long march. They greet him not with words but with nods, slipping into step as naturally as water joins a stream. For a time they walk in silence, only the sound of staffs striking mud, sandals dragging, cloaks brushing against one another. The road stretches long, winding through farmland bordered by hedge. With dew, children stand at gates to watch, whispering, some calling blessings, others laughing at the strange assortment of travelers. A farmer offers a crust of bread, his hand rough, his smile faint. A woman pours water into a wooden cup, pressing it into waiting hands before turning back to her washing. Such gifts are small, but they sustain. The pilgrim accepts them with bowed head, his thanks whispered more in gesture than in voice. By late morning, the road enters woodland. The closes overhead, leaves dripping, branches creaking as wind stirs through them. Light filters dimly, dappling the ground in pale green and brown. The pilgrim walks with care, the path slick with moss, roots rising like twisted ropes to catch the careless foot. Birds flutter in the underbrush, unseen yet heard, their wings whispering through the silence. Here, prayer comes unbidden. The rhythm of walking, of breath, of staff against earth becomes chant, the forest itself an echoing chapel. The pilgrim's lips move softly, his words lost in the hush of leaves. Around him, others do the same, rosaries slipping through fingers, verses murmured beneath breath, each voice folded into the greater silence of the woods. At noon they emerge into a clearing where a stream runs swift and bright. The water is cold, biting against hands and face, but it refreshes, soothes blisters, eases thirst. Bread is drawn from satchels once more, broken into small portions, shared without question. Upon stones, upon fallen logs, upon the damp earth itself, chewing slowly, letting the sound of the stream wash over them. For a moment the road feels gentler, the weight lighter, the journey less endless. Then the path rises again, climbing a hill where the wind grows sharper. From its crest they see far across the countryside, fields patchworked in green and brown, villages huddled around church spires, rivers glinting like silver threads. The sight is vast, humbling. The pilgrim, leaning upon his staff, his breath slow, his chest heavy with both weariness and awe. The shrine he seeks is not visible, yet the road toward it lies plain before his eyes. Afternoon lengthens, shadows stretching as clouds gather. The air thickens with the promise of rain once more. Villages appear at intervals, their houses clustered tight, their streets muddy, their wells busy. Some offer shelter to pilgrims, barns opened, hearths shared. Others turn them away, doors bolted, eyes suspicious. Voices sharp. The pilgrim accepts both with the same bowed head, for judgment lies not in the kindness of men, but in the endurance of the road. As dusk approaches, the sky darkens. Thunder rumbles faintly across the hills, a low growl carried on the wind. The pilgrims quicken their pace, seeking cover before the storm breaks. A tavern offers little space, crowded with farmers and travelers, the air thick with smoke and ale. Yet a corner is found, straw piled, a bowl of thin stew purr. The last of a coin. The taste is plain, watery, but it warms the belly, softens the edge of hunger. When night falls, the storm begins. Rain lashes against the tavern roof, wind howls through cracks, lightning flashes across the windows. Inside, the pilgrims lie close, their bodies huddled together, their breath steady, their eyes heavy. The pilgrim curls within his cloak, listening to the storm's fury, yet unshaken. For storms pass, hunger passes, cold passes. The road alone endures, as faith, long as life itself. And when dawn comes again, wet and grey, the pilgrim will rise once more, shoulders bent beneath his cloak, staff striking earth, feet moving forward. Always forward, for the shrine lies ahead, distant, unseen, but waiting as it always has, as it always will. Dawn breaks slowly, the storm's remnants still clinging to the sky in heavy clouds that hang low and grey. The tavern air is damp, thick with the mingled scents of smoke, sweat, and wet wool. The stirs from uneasy rest, his cloak stiff with moisture, his limbs sore from the hardness of straw. Around him, others rise as well. Men pulling on boots caked with mud, women adjusting cloaks heavy with rain, a child rubbing sleep from her eyes as her father shoulders their pack. The tavern keeper moves among them, sweeping the floor, muttering about the mess pilgrims leave behind. Few words are spoken, most simply bow their heads, murmur a prayer, and prepare for the road once more. Out. The world is soaked. Puddles ripple in the dirt street, carts creak heavily through the mud, dogs shake water from their coats. The pilgrim steps into it without hesitation, staff in hand, sandals sinking slightly into the soft ground. His cloak clings to him, cold against his skin, but already his steps find their rhythm. The sound of the road returns, the thud of wood upon earth, the squelch of wet sandals, the murmur of voices as companions gather around him. The path wins out. Village, climbing slowly through fields that steam faintly in the cool air. Farmers are already at work despite the mud, oxen straining against plows, men calling softly to guide them. The pilgrims pass without comment, some raising hands in blessing, others receiving only weary nods. Beyond the fields, the land rises into hills, their slopes cloaked in heather and scrub. Mist curls along the ridges, obscuring the path, but the line of pilgrims continues forward, steady as the tide. Mid-morning, the sky brightens slightly, pale light piercing through thinning clouds. The air smells of wet earth and crushed grass, of wood smoke drifting from distant cottages. A chapel appears at a crossroads, its stone walls slick with rain, its wooden door weathered and scarred. The pilgrims file inside, the space dim and cool, the air heavy with the scent of damp stone and old wax. They kneel before the altar, whispers rising like smoke, prayers murmured for strength, for healing, for forgiveness. The pilgrim bows his head, lips moving in silence, his thoughts as much upon the road behind as the miles ahead. When they emerge, the sun has broken briefly through the clouds, laying a soft glow across the land. Spirits lift faintly, steps quicken, voices rise in low song. For a time, the road feels lighter, the burden eased as if the world itself has offered blessing. But soon the sun fades once more, swallowed by cloud, and the rhythm of walking returns to its steady, relentless pace. The hours stretch long. The pilgrim's feet throb with each step, his shoulders ache beneath the weight of his satchel, his throat grows dry despite the flask at his side. Yet he does not stop. The road is his master now, and he obeys without question. Around him others falter, pausing to bind feet, to rest against stones, to sip water from a shared cup. But each rises again, for none can afford to linger. The shrine is still far, and the journey does not wait. Find a stream, its waters cold and swift, tumbling over smooth stones. They kneel to drink, cupping hands, splashing faces, filling flasks. Bread is passed around, hard and stale, broken into small portions, yet each bite savored as though it were feast. The pilgrim chews slowly, staring into the rushing water, letting its sound wash through his thoughts. It is not comfort, but it is enough. The afternoon carries them into woodland once more. The air is cool, the canopy thick, the growl. With roots and stones, light filters in thin beams, dappling the path, casting shadows that shift with every step. Birds call faintly, squirrels dart across branches, yet the forest feels hushed, its silence deeper than prayer. Here the road narrows, twisting and rising, testing tired legs. The pilgrim leans heavily upon his staff, each breath loud in his ears, but his feet never cease. As the light fades, the forest thins, giving way to a valley where a village huddles beside a river. Curls from chimneys, lamps glow faintly in windows, voices carry across the water. The pilgrims descend into it, their bodies weary, their faces drawn, but their eyes lifting with the promise of rest. An inn opens its door, offering crowded benches, a bowl of stew, a corner of floor. A farmer gestures them into his barn, straw piled against the walls, warmth rising from the animals within. The pilgrim accepts what is given. He eats slowly, savoring each mouthful, though hunger stretches upon straw, cloak pulled tight, eyes closing as the murmur of voices fades. Beyond the walls, the river rushes, steady and endless, its sound blending with the breath of those around him. Sleep comes not as gift, but as necessity. For when dawn breaks again, the road will wait, stretching forward into mist, into rain, into uncounted miles. And the pilgrim will rise once more, his staff striking earth, his feet carrying him onward, always onward, toward a shrine unseen. Forgotten. The morning begins in half-light, the world still wrapped in mist that clings to every field and hedgerow. The barn is cool, the straw damp beneath the pilgrim's cloak, the air filled with the soft breath of animals shifting in their stalls. A rooster crows faintly somewhere beyond the walls, followed by the creak of a door and the muffled voices of villagers beginning their day. The pilgrim opens his eyes, bones stiff, muscles aching, but the rhythm of the road leaves no time for lingering. He rises quietly, gathering his few possessions, brushing straw from his cloak. Around him, other pilgrims stir as well. An old woman adjusting her rosary, lips already moving in prayer, a youth tightening the straps of sandals worn thin from miles of walking, a father bending to rouse his child gently from sleep. They exchange weary nods, no words needed. All know the day ahead will be long, and silence is easier than speech when strength must be saved for them. Village is waking. Smoke climbs from chimneys, carrying the scent of peat and damp wood. Women bend over wells, drawing water in wooden buckets, while men guide oxen into the fields, their voices carrying softly through the mist. The pilgrim walks past them, staff in hand, sandals striking the muddy ground. Some pause to watch, some cross themselves, others glance away. Pilgrims are both a familiar sight and a reminder of hardship, dust, hunger, and devotion worn plainly upon their road leads away from the river, winding through meadows heavy with dew. Each blade of grass gleams with moisture, each spider's web glistens faintly in the weak morning light. The pilgrim's cloak grows damp as he brushes past hedges, droplets clinging to the wool. His breath clouds in the air, merging with the faint murmurs of prayers whispered by those around him. By mid-morning, the sun pushes faintly through, pale but steady, warming the earth. The group of pilgrims grows as the road joins. Others, figures emerging from byways, cloaks pinned with scallop shells, staffs polished smooth. They fall into step naturally, strangers drawn into the same rhythm. Some walk with bowed heads, others with eyes fixed on the horizon, all silent save for the occasional murmur of greeting or prayer. The land rises gently into hills, the road climbing through slopes darted with sheep. Their bleating carries on the wind, shepherds' calls echoing faintly as they guide their flocks across the grass. The air smells of wool, of damp stone, of heather crushed beneath feet. The pilgrim leans on his staff, his breath heavy as the climb steepens, but he does not slow. Each step is a bead in a rosary, each mile a verse in an endless psalm. At the crest of the hill, the view spreads wide. Patchwork fields, hedgerows weaving across the land, villages clustered around their churches, rivers gleaming like silver threads. The shrine itself is not yet visible, but the road to it is written across. Earth, stretching farther than the eye can follow. The pilgrims pause, some whispering blessings, others simply gazing in silence, before descending once more into the valley below. By midday, they reach a crossroads marked by a small stone chapel. Its door is worn, its walls rough with lichen, yet within it offers a quietness deeper than the fields. The air smells of wax and cold stone, the altar plain, the candles burning low. The pilgrim kneels, his knees pressing into flagstone, moving soundlessly as he gives thanks for the strength to rise again. A copper coin clinks softly against the altar as he rises, a small offering left behind as he steps once more into the sunlight. The afternoon stretches long. The road passes through woodland, the canopy shading the path, light filtering in pale shafts. The air is cool, damp with the smell of moss and leaves. Feet tread softly over roots, staffs tapping against stone. Birds call from branches, unseen yet close, their voice breaking the silence like distant bells. The pilgrim's mind drifts with the rhythm of walking, thoughts dissolving into the steady sound of steps, breath, heartbeat. When they emerge, the land opens into broad fields where farmers work, bent low over furrows, their hands dark with soil. Some pause to watch the pilgrims pass, wiping sweat from brows, leaning on tools. A few call blessings, others offer water, ladled from buckets drawn fresh from wells. The pilgrim drinks deeply, sliding down his throat, easing the dust that clings to tongue and teeth. He bows his head in thanks, then steps forward once more. As evening nears, the sky shifts, clouds gathering in heavy grey. The wind grows sharp, carrying the scent of rain. The pilgrims quicken their pace, sandals striking faster against the dirt, staffs tapping more urgently. Ahead, a village rises from the mist, its houses clustered tight, its church spire dark against the sky. Smoke drifts from chimneys, lamb. Faintly in windows, voices call across streets already slick with damp. Shelter is found once again, a barn with straw piled high, an inn crowded with travellers, a hearth where warmth seeps into weary bones. The pilgrim eats what little he has, bread hard as stone, cheese sharp with age, water drawn from a jug, and lies down upon straw. His cloak is pulled tightly around him, his eyes heavy, his body aching. Outside, rain begins once more, steady and unbroken. Patter. The sound is constant, as endless as the road itself. The pilgrim listens as sleep takes him, knowing that when dawn breaks, the cycle will return. Rise, walk, pray, endure. The shrine remains unseen, distant, but always waiting. Each day is only another step, another offering, another verse in the long chant of pilgrimage. The rain has fallen through the night, steady and soft, until the very earth seems soaked with it. By the time dawn arrives, the air smells of wet soil, of smoke dam. Mist, of wool that has never truly dried. The pilgrim stirs from sleep, straw clinging to his cloak, his bones aching from another night upon the ground. Around him, the barn is filled with slow movement. Bodies rising, satchels gathered, staffs lifted. A cough echoes from one corner, a prayer from another, the shuffle of feet against dirt as the company prepares once again to leave. When the door is opened, mist curls inward like a living thing, swallowing the outlines of the village beyond. Roofs sag beneath moisture, puddles spread wide across the street, chickens scuttle through mud in search of grain. The pilgrim steps into it with bowed head, staff striking the ground with each step, the rhythm familiar, almost comforting. The road waits, always the same, always endless, stretching forward no matter the weather. As they pass through the village, some faces peer from windows, others call blessings, others frown in silence. A woman offers a jug of thin ale, pressing it into the pilgrim's hand with a brief smile. A child runs alongside for a few paces, laughing, before being called back sharply by her mother. The pilgrim accepts kindness and indifference alike, for both are woven into the fabric of the road. By mid-morning, the mist begins to lift, revealing fields bordered by hedgerows heavy with moisture. Crows gather in dark clusters upon fence posts, their cries sharp against the quiet. Beyond, shepherds move their flocks slowly across wet grass. Sheep's necks clinking softly, a music that drifts through the air. The pilgrim listens, footsteps falling in time with the sound, the road and the land bound together in rhythm. The company grows as the road joins with another path. Figures emerge from the haze. A woman leaning upon a staff carved smooth by years of walking, a man carrying a bundle of cloth strapped across his back, a boy with eyes wide and eager though his steps falter from fatigue. They greet with nods, with brief murmurs of blessing and fall into the same rhythm. The line of pilgrims stretches, sandals striking mud, cloaks brushing together, staffs tapping steadily like drums. Near noon, the road descends into a hollow where a stream runs swift. They kneel to drink, cupping water into their mouths, filling flasks, washing the dust from their faces. Bread is brought from satchels, stale and hard, broken into pieces and passed silently between them. A pilgrim hums softly, a tune without words, the sound. Through the murmurs of prayer, the rush of water, the call of birds in the distance. For a moment the hardship eases and the journey feels lighter, but soon the climb begins again. The path rises through forest, roots twisting across the way, stones slick with moss. The air is dim beneath the canopy, the smell of damp leaves and pine needles heavy around them. Their breaths grow louder, their steps slower, but no one turns back. The pilgrim leans upon his staff, sweat beading upon his brow. Despite the coolness of the wood, his lips moving faintly in prayer. Each step is another offering, another act of devotion carved into the earth. At the crest, the trees thin, opening upon a ridge from which the land spreads wide. Villages lie scattered below, their smoke rising in thin grey lines. Fields stretch like patchwork, rivers glint faintly as they wind toward distant hills. The shrine lies somewhere beyond all of it, unseen, but its presence lingers in the pull of the road The pilgrims pause, gazing in silence, before descending once more into the valley. The afternoon is long. Feet blister, shoulders ache, hunger gnaws. Yet the line moves steadily, each body bent but unbroken. They pass a roadside cross, its wood weathered, its base strewn with offerings of flowers, of coins, of scraps of cloth tied in prayer. The pilgrim bows his head as he passes, lips brushing a whispered blessing before his staff strikes earth again. By evening, clouds gather heavy and dark. The air thickens, the scent of rain sharp, the wind rising in sudden gusts. The pilgrims quicken their pace, the road slickening beneath their feet. At last, a village appears, its houses clustered tight against the wind, its church spire dark against the storm. Doors open, barns offered, hearths glowing faintly through windows. Shelter is found again, a loft above livestock, straw piled high, warmth seeping from the beasts below. The pilgrim eats sparingly, bread softened in water, sliver of cheese, and lies down with cloak drawn close. Around him, the barn creaks in the wind, animals shifting restlessly, voices murmuring prayers. Beyond, rain breaks, lashing against roof and earth, thunder rolling across hills. Yet within there is a strange peace. The road may be endless, the shrine unseen, but for this night there is rest. Sleep comes slow, broken by the storm, but it comes. And with it, the certainty that when dawn returns, the road will call again, as it always will. The pilgrim will rise, his staff will strike earth, and his feet will carry him forward into the mist, into the rain, into the unmeasured miles of devotion. The storm lingers into the night, but by the time the first grey light seeps through the cracks of the barn walls, the rain has softened into a fine drizzle. The pilgrim wakes with the rest, his cloak damp, his joints stiff from straw pressed flat beneath him. The animals below shift and snort, their warmth rising faintly through the floorboards, mingling with the breath of sleeping travelers. Slowly the barn comes to life, pilgrims stirring, straps tightened on satchels, staffs lifted from where they leaned against beams. Words are few, for the road demands silence, and silence has become its own form of prayer. Outside, the village is still drowsy. A few doors creak open, smoke curling thinly from chimneys, roosters crowing weakly into the drizzle. Mud pools in the street, chickens peck along its edges, and a pair of children stand to watch as the line of pilgrims sets out. Some smile shyly, some cross themselves, others only stare until their mother calls them back indoors. The pilgrim lowers his gaze, staff striking earth in rhythm, feet sinking softly into the softened road. The morning path winds between fields heavy with moisture. Wheat bends low, its heads glistening, while cows chew slowly behind rough wooden fences, their hides darkened by the night's rain. A farmer, plough to watch the travelers pass, his hand raised briefly in greeting. Another woman offers water from a jug, her shawl pulled tight against the drizzle. Each gift is small, yet each sustains, easing the long hunger and thirst that cling like shadows to every pilgrim. By mid-morning, the drizzle eases, though clouds hang still, low and heavy. The road climbs gently into rolling hills, the mist thickening until the line of travelers seems to vanish and emerge again like ghosts. Sandals, staffs sink deep into the softened ground, cloaks cling with damp weight. Yet no one falters. The rhythm is steady, endless. Step, breath, prayer. Step, breath, prayer. A chapel waits at the hilltop, its stone walls rough with moss, its bell silent. Within, the air is cool and still, the faint scent of wax lingering though no candles burn. The pilgrims kneel upon the worn floor, the flagstones cold against their knees. The pilgrim bows his head, lips whispering prayers that dissolve into silence, his mind filled not with grand visions, but with the simple hope of strength for another day. When he rises, a copper coin clinks softly against the altar, an offering as much of endurance as of faith. Beyond the chapel, the road dips into a valley where a stream runs swift and bright. The pilgrims kneel to drink, the water cold and sharp against their tongues. Bread is shared, broken into small, hard pieces, softened in the stream's flow. A child laughs faintly as the water against her hands, but her father hushes her, guiding her back into the solemn rhythm of the journey. For a moment, the company rests, sitting upon stones, upon grass, letting the water's voice mingle with the beat of their hearts. Then, as one, they rise again. The afternoon is long, the land stretching wide with meadows and hedgerows. Birds circle overhead, their cries sharp, while in the distance oxen pull slow carts laden with hay. Villagers glance up as the pilgrims pass, some nodding, some frowning, some offering nothing at all. Dust clings to sandals, sweat beads upon brows, yet the line never falters. The road is both burden and blessing, the shrine both distant and present in every step. As shadows lengthen, clouds gather once more, the sky darkening into heavy grey. The wind picks up, carrying the smell of rain yet again, the promise of another night of storms. The pilgrims press on, sandals slapping wet earth, cloaks snapping faintly in the gusts. At last, another village rises ahead, clustered around its church spire. Dogs bark, children run to gates, women call out blessings, some offering bread, some only curious stares. Shelter is found once more, barns opened, inns crowded, lofts filled with straw. The pilgrim settles into his place, cloak drawn close, satchel set at his side. Supper is meagre, a crust of bread, a sip of ale, but it fills the hollow enough to ease the edge of hunger. Around him, voices murmur prayers, a rosary. Coughs into the quiet. Night falls. Rain begins again, steady, patient, unbroken. The pilgrim lies back, eyes heavy, listening to the rhythm that has become as familiar as breath. The sound of rain, the weight of silence, the certainty of the road. Tomorrow the cycle will begin again. Rise, walk, pray, endure. And each step will be another offering, another verse in the endless hymn of pilgrimage, carrying him forward into the unseen distance where the shrine waits, as it always has, as it always will. The night passes heavy with rain, the roof of the barn dripping in slow intervals, straw beneath the pilgrim's body growing damp and musty. When the first pale streaks of dawn filter through cracks in the wooden walls, the company is already stirring. Some cough quietly into their cloaks, others pull straps tighter around satchels, and the familiar creak of staffs against beams echoes softly through the space. The pilgrim moves slowly, his limbs heavy with weariness, his sandals stiff from mud dried and cracked, yet he rises without hesitation. The road allows no indulgence of rest. Outside, the village is grey and glistening. Puddles scatter across the street, hens scratch at the mud, and smoke rises thinly from chimneys. A farmer pauses his work to watch, leaning against the doorframe of his cottage, arms crossed against the chill. Two children chase one another across the lane until their mother calls them back sharply, warning them to give space to. The pilgrim lowers his gaze, pulling his cloak tighter, his staff striking earth in rhythm. The sound joins the murmurs of others as the line of pilgrims stretches out of the village and onto the open road once more. The morning is slow, the air heavy with dampness that clings to every cloak, every beard, every lock of hair. Fields spread wide on either side, their soil dark and rich with rain, furrows glistening, crows strutting boldly between rows. Shepherds guide their flocks with low whistles, dogs darting quick and silent at their command. A boy runs to the roadside, offering a handful of apples bruised and small, his eyes bright with curiosity. The pilgrim accepts one, bowing his head in gratitude before slipping it into his satchel for later. Such small kindnesses carry weight upon the road. By mid-morning, the clouds lift slightly, allowing shafts of pale light to pierce through. The mist burns away from hedgerows, revealing spider webs gleaming with droplet. Strand trembling as though alive. The pilgrims fall into rhythm, their sandals striking in near unison, staffs tapping like the steady beat of a drum. Some whisper prayers as they walk, lips moving silently, rosaries slipping bead by bead through calloused fingers. Others simply breathe, letting the sound of the road fill their minds, thought dissolving into motion. The path narrows as it climbs a ridge, stones jutting, roots twisting across the way. The ascent slows the company, breath coming. Heavy, cloaks dragging against mud. The pilgrim leans upon his staff, each step measured, steady, an act of endurance more than progress. At the crest, they pause, gazing out over the countryside spread wide below, rivers coiling silver through meadows, distant church towers pricking the horizon, fields patchworked in shades of green and brown. The shrine is not visible, yet its presence is felt in the pull of the road itself, always forward, always unseen but never absent. A chapel. The ridge, its walls rough-hewn, its roof sagging but sound. They file inside, the air cool, the scent of wax and stone pressing close. Knees bend upon flagstones polished smooth by generations, lips move in prayers soft as breath. The pilgrim bows his head, eyes closed, his mind filled not with visions of glory, but with the steady plea for strength to endure. When he rises, a copper coin clinks softly upon the altar, joining countless others left by hands as weary as his own. Carries them into woodland where light filters in fractured beams, dappling the ground. The path is soft with fallen leaves, damp earth cushioning each step. The air smells of moss and pine, sharp and clean. Though the climb tires the legs, the damp soaks the cloaks. A bird calls sharply, breaking the silence, answered faintly by another deeper in the trees. The pilgrims walk in quiet, breaths merging into the hush of the forest, the road itself becoming a prayer. At midday, they reach a stream. Running cold and swift, tumbling over smooth stones. Sandals are slipped off, blistered feet dipped into the water, the chill sharp but soothing. They drink deeply, fill their flasks, splash faces until skin glows pink. Bread is drawn from satchels, hard, stale, broken into small pieces. A woman produces a heel of cheese, passing it to those nearest, who pass it on in turn until all have tasted. It is not feast, but it is enough, and for a time they rest, the water's voice stead, flickering faintly through the canopy. The afternoon stretches long across open meadows, the sky shifting once more into heavy grey. Wind bends grasses, carrying with it the scent of rain and distant hearth smoke. Villagers pause in their labor as the line of travelers passes. A man mending a fence, a woman hanging linens to dry, a group of children chasing a dog across the lane. Some wave, some frown, some simply stare. The pilgrim accepts all with the same bowed head, his staff steady. Sandals pressing onward. Toward evening, the first drops fall again, light but steady. Cloaks grow heavy, sandals sink into softened earth, but the rhythm does not falter. A village appears, huddled against the gathering storm, its cottages clustered close, its church bell tolling faintly in the wind. Doors open, barns offered, corners of inns crowded with travelers. The pilgrim finds straw in a loft above animals, warmth rising from their bodies, the air thick with their breath. Supper is meager, a bowl of thin broth, a crust of bread softened in water, a sip of ale if coin allows. Yet it warms enough to ease the harlow within. Around him, voices murmur prayers, rosaries clink, a child whimpers in sleep. The barn settles slowly into silence, broken only by the shifting of beasts below, the patter of rain against the roof, the distant growl of thunder. The pilgrim lies back, cloak pulled close, eyes heavy. The sound of rain fills the night, steady, endless, merging. Of his heart, sleep comes slowly but firmly, wrapping him like another cloak. Tomorrow will bring the same, rising in grey light, walking through mist and mud, pausing at chapels, drinking from streams, bowing before altars. The shrine remains unseen, but the road itself has become the shrine, each step another offering, each mile another prayer. And so he sleeps, and the rain falls, and the road waits, stretching always onward, as it has for countless pilgrims before, as it will for. More to come. The dawn comes with a heaviness that clings to every surface. The rain of the night has ceased, but its memory remains in the soaked earth, in the sheen of wet stone, in the wool cloaks that cling to weary shoulders. The barn is dim, the air filled with the scent of straw and livestock, the slow stirrings of men and women rising once more. The pilgrim opens his eyes to see faint light seeping between boards, dust and mist mingling in the beams. He pulls his cloak tight, rubs. Stiffness from his knees, and reaches for his staff. Around him, others do the same, their faces drawn and pale, but their motions practiced, inevitable. The door creaks open, and cool morning air floods in. Mist curls low over the village, wrapping cottages and hedgerows in a pale veil. Dogs bark faintly, hens cluck, and the first smoke of the day drifts from chimneys. The pilgrims step out in silence, sandals sinking into mud, staffs striking softly. Their line stretches. Street past shuttered windows and wooden fences until it disappears into the fields beyond. The road this morning is slow and heavy. Mud clings thickly to feet, every step dragging more weight than the last. The pilgrim lowers his head, eyes fixed upon the ground, each breath a mist before his face. The rhythm steadies him, thud of staff, squelch of sandal, whisper of cloak against cloak. Around him, others move in the same measured cadence, an endless procession of devotion. As the sun. Faintly, the mist thins. Fields emerge, glistening with dew, their furrows running dark with water. Farmers stoop low over the soil, oxen pulling steadily before them, children darting quick with baskets in hand. Some glance toward the pilgrims, lifting a hand, crossing themselves, offering a crust of bread or a dipper of water. Others turn away, their eyes hard, their voices muttering against beggars and strangers. The pilgrim accepts all alike, bowing his head, his lips moving faint. Prayer. By mid-morning, the road winds into woodland. The canopy presses close overhead, the air damp and cool, the smell of moss and earth heavy. Light falls in scattered beams, dappling the path, making each step uncertain upon roots and stones. Birds flit above, their calls sharp against the hush, squirrels dart along branches, their tails flashing. The pilgrims walk softly, breath shallow, their silence blending with the stillness of the wood. The pilgrim's thoughts dissolve into the rhythm. Of his feet, his prayer no longer words but motion itself, carried in each step, each breath, each beat of his heart. At the forest's edge lies a small shrine, a wooden cross weathered by rain, its base piled with stones, its arms hung with scraps of cloth tied in petition. The pilgrims pause here, kneeling in the damp earth, whispering prayers, pressing hands against the worn wood. Some leave tokens, a coin, a flower, a bead of rosary broken from its string. The pilgrim lays his hand. Cross, the wood rough and wet, and bows his head. When he rises, his knees are muddy, but his heart steadier. The road beyond slopes downward into a valley where a stream runs clear and fast. Cloaks are cast aside, flasks filled, feet dipped into the cold rush. Bread is drawn from satchels, stale and tough, broken and softened in the water. The pilgrim eats slowly, chewing each bite with care, letting the coolness of the stream soothe his thirst. Around him, others rest upon stones, some laughing quietly, some murmuring prayers, some simply staring into the flow as if it carried their burdens away. The afternoon stretches long across open meadows. Grass sways in the wind, wildflowers nodding beneath heavy heads, bees moving lazily between blooms. The sky remains grey, but the rain holds off, leaving only the constant weight of clouds. The pilgrims walk in silence, their line weaving across the landscape, small figures against the immensity of the earth. The pilgrims show. Ache, his feet throb, but his steps remain steady. The road has stripped him of comfort, of ease, yet it has left him with something harder, something quieter, endurance. Toward evening, the path passes through a village where cottages cluster tight, smoke rising thick from chimneys, voices calling across narrow lanes. Children run to gates, some laughing, some crossing themselves, their eyes wide with curiosity. A woman offers a jug of milk, pressing it into waiting hands. A man opens her barn, gesturing toward the straw piled high within. The pilgrims file gratefully inside, laying out cloaks, setting down staffs, preparing for another night of rest. Supper is plain, bread softened in broth, a sip of ale shared among many, water drawn from the well. Yet it is enough. The pilgrim eats quietly, his eyes half closed, the warmth easing the ache in his belly. Around him, the barn fills with low murmurs of prayer, the clink of rosaries, the slow settling of weary bodies. They shift below, their breath rising warm, their movements steady and calm. When darkness falls, the village quiets, lamps dimmed, voices hushed. Rain begins again, a steady patter upon roof and earth, weaving into the fabric of silence. The pilgrim lies back, cloak pulled close, eyes heavy. He listens to the rain until it becomes the sound of sleep itself, endless and patient. Tomorrow the road will call once more, and he will answer as he always has, as he always will, until the reached, or until the journey itself has become the shrine. The rain has washed the night clean, leaving the morning world hushed and heavy with moisture. The barn door creaks as it is pushed open, letting in a pale wash of grey light. Pilgrims stir from their straw, cloaks pulled tight, satchels slung once more across tired shoulders. Faces are drawn, eyes shadowed with fatigue, yet there is no hesitation. The road waits, as it always does, and they rise to meet it. Outside, the village. Still, smoke curls faintly from chimneys, dogs bark from behind fences, and the ground lies soft and dark beneath their sandals. The pilgrims file into the lane, their lines stretching thin, staffs striking rhythm against the earth. The pilgrim joins them, lowering his gaze, each step slow but steady, the sound of feet merging into a single, unbroken cadence. The road this morning is bordered by hedgerows dripping with last night's rain. Drops slide from leaves, pattering softly. Here, birds stir within the thickets, their calls hesitant, as if testing the day. Beyond, fields stretch wide, their furrows dark and shining, oxen pulling heavily against the weight of sodden earth. Farmers pause to watch, leaning on their plows, their faces unreadable. Some lift hands in blessing, others turn away, muttering. The pilgrim accepts both with bowed head, for both kindness and disdain have become familiar companions. By mid-morning, the clouds thin, light breaking weakly across the land. The mist lifts from the fields, revealing cottages scattered across hillsides, their roofs glistening with damp. The road rises gently, climbing between meadows where sheep graze, their bells clinking softly. The air is cool, smelling of grass and damp stone, the kind of air that lingers in the chest, heavy but clean. The pilgrim breathes it in deeply, though each breath is edged with weariness. At the crest of a hill, a wayside cross stands, its wood dark with rain, its base surrounded by stones placed by countless hands. Scraps of cloth flutter from its arms, prayers tied in silence, fading and frayed by weather. The pilgrims pause, kneeling in the mud, their lips moving faintly. The pilgrim presses his forehead against the wet wood, feeling the grain beneath his skin, whispering a prayer not for miracles but for endurance. When he rises, his knees are damp, his cloak muddied, but his step is steadier. The descent carries them into woodland where the canopy shelters the road in dim green light. The ground is soft with fallen leaves, their edges darkened by rain, their scent rising with each step. The air is filled with the faint rustle of branches, the drip of water, the occasional cry of a bird. The pilgrims move in silence, their breaths slow and shallow, the sound of sandals muffled by the earth. Here the road feels less like passage and more like prayer, the act of walking itself a chant repeated without end. Near midday they reach a clearing, where a stream runs clear, tumbling over smooth stones. Sandals are removed, blistered feet dipped into the cold rush, sighs rising as pain is eased. Flasks are filled, faces splashed, hunger dulled by bread broken into small pieces and softened in the water. The pilgrim eats slowly, chewing each bite with care, his gaze fixed upon the current. Around him, others rest upon stones, their shoulders bowed, their voices murmuring softly in prayer or quiet song. The air is filled with the sound of water, breath, and silence. When they rise again, the afternoon stretches long. The road winds between villages where children stand at gates to watch, some waving, some laughing, some whispering behind their hands. Women call from doorways, offering water, a crust of bread, sometimes only a glance. Men lean upon tools, their expressions unreadable as the line of travelers passes. The pilgrim accepts all with the same bowed head, his staff steady, his sandals pressing onward. As sun sinks lower, the sky darkens once more, clouds gathering heavy and grey. The air grows thick, the promise of rain sharp. The pilgrims quicken their pace, their line bending and swaying across the land. At last, a village comes into view, its cottages close together, its church tower rising above. Doors open, barns offered, corners of inns crowded with weary bodies. The pilgrim finds his place upon straw once more, cloak pulled tight, satchel set beside him. Supper is a crust of bread, water drawn fresh from the well. Yet it warms enough to soothe the hollow within. Around him, voices murmur prayers, rosaries click faintly, children settle against their mothers, eyes closing in exhaustion. The barn quiets, the rhythm of breath filling the air, blending with the first soft patter of rain against the roof. The pilgrim lies back, staring into the dim rafters, listening to the steady fall of water. His eyes grow heavy, his thoughts dissolving into the sound. Sleep comes as it always does, slow, inevitable, necessary. Tomorrow the road will wait, as patient as stone, as endless as the rain. He will rise again, staff in hand, sandals striking earth, carrying him forward into the unseen miles where the shrine lies, distant but certain, as it always has, as it always will. The morning arrives not with sunlight, but with a soft grayness that feels endless, as though the sky itself has grown weary. The barn is filled with the sound of quiet. Shuffle of feet against straw, the muffled cough of an old man, the creak of wood as pilgrims rise once more. The air is heavy with the mingled scents of damp wool, smoke that clings from last night's hearth, and the warm musk of animals below. The pilgrim wakes slowly, stretching stiff limbs, feeling the ache that has become as familiar as breath. He draws his cloak tighter, lifts his staff, and joins the steady tide of bodies moving toward the door. Outside, the village is waking in fragments. A woman bends over her fire, coaxing it to life with careful hands. A man drives geese along the lane, their cries sharp against the morning hush. A child clings to her mother's skirts, peering wide-eyed at the passing travelers. The pilgrims file through, silent but for the rhythm of sandals in mud and the soft thud of staffs against earth. Some villagers nod, others turn away, and a few reach out with crusts of bread, blessings spoken softly. The pilgrim accepts each with head, his lips murmuring prayers as he moves. The road stretches wet and shining, lined with hedgerows heavy with dew. Each leaf glitters faintly, each spiderweb strung with droplets that tremble in the faint breeze. The mist lingers low, curling across furrows where oxen pull heavily at the plough. Farmers straighten from their work to watch, their faces unreadable, their hands pausing only for a moment before returning to the soil. By mid-morning, the mist lifts, revealing fields that's wide and rolling. Sheep graze upon slopes, their bells chiming faintly as they move, shepherds guiding them with whistles and staffs. The pilgrims climb slowly, breath coming heavier, sandals dragging through softened earth. At the crest of a hill they pause, gazing out over the vastness, villages tucked into valleys, streams glinting like pale silver, church towers rising faint and distant. The shrine remains unseen, yet its presence lingers in the endless pull of the road. At the hilltop stands a stone cross, its surface weathered, its base surrounded by offerings of flowers, coins, and cloth. The pilgrims kneel, the earth damp beneath their knees, voices rising in murmured prayer. The pilgrim presses his forehead to the cold stone, whispering words only half formed, not of miracles but of endurance, of strength to take another step, another mile. When he rises, he places a pebble at the base, small and simple, then lifts his staff and moves on. The descent leads them. Woodland, the canopy dimming the path, light filtering through in broken beams. The air is cool, the ground soft with fallen leaves, the scent of pine and earth thick around them. Birds call faintly, the flutter of wings stirring branches, the silence otherwise unbroken save for the steady tread of feet. Here the road becomes a chant, the rhythm of walking itself a prayer repeated endlessly. By midday they reach a clearing where a spring bubbles clear from the earth. They kneel to drink, cupping water in their hands, filling flasks, washing the dust from their faces. Bread is shared again, hard and dry, softened against lips with sips of water. Some close their eyes as they eat, savoring each bite as though it were feast. The pilgrim sits upon a stone, his staff laid beside him, watching the ripples spread across the water, his mind quiet, emptied of everything but the sound. The afternoon stretches across meadows and fields where villagers work with bent backs, guiding. Through soil, lifting baskets heavy with grain. Some call blessings as the travelers pass, pressing gifts into their hands, an onion, a heel of cheese, a dipper of ale. Others turn away, wary or indifferent, their eyes following silently until the line disappears. The pilgrim accepts each with equal grace, his steps steady, his gaze fixed forward. By evening, the sky darkens once more. Clouds gather heavy and low, the wind sharp with the promise of rain. The pilgrims quicken their pace, lines swaying across the land like a rope drawn tight. At last, another village comes into sight, its cottages clustered close, its church tower stark against the grey. Doors open, barns offered, corners of inns crowded with weary bodies. The pilgrim finds shelter in straw again, warmth rising from beasts below, the air thick but steady. Supper is plain, bread soaked in broth, a sliver of cheese, water fresh from the well. It fills enough to quiet hunger, though never to satisfy. Voices murmur softly, rosaries click, a child whimpers before sleep. The barn settles into silence broken only by shifting bodies, the creak of beams, the faint stir of wind outside. When darkness falls, rain returns, pattering upon the roof, seeping into the night with a steady rhythm. The pilgrim lies back, his cloak wrapped close, his staff resting beside him. His eyes close, his thoughts dissolve into the sound of water falling endlessly. Sleep takes him, and the roadway, certain, stretching onward into the unseen miles, as it has always done, as it always will. The grey light of morning creeps slowly across the rafters, pale and muted, revealing the outlines of weary bodies stirring in the straw. The pilgrim wakes to the damp chill that clings to every surface, the faint smell of animals rising from below, and the soft shuffle of sandals as others prepare for the road. His limbs ache, his shoulders stiff beneath the weight of his cloak, yet he moves with the same practiced care as the rest. Pilgrimage allows no hesitation. Each dawn is only another verse in the same long chant. The barn door opens, and mist rolls inside, cool and heavy. The village lies hushed beyond, roofs glistening, smoke rising faintly from early fires. Dogs bark from behind fences, children peek from doorways before being ushered back by their mothers. The pilgrims step into the lane one by one, staffs lifted, satchels tightened, their line winding slow. Countryside, the sound of feet in mud, steady and unbroken, becomes the first music of the day. The road stretches wet and shining, bordered by hedges heavy with moisture. Drops fall from leaves in steady rhythm, soaking cloaks, darkening hair. Birds stir faintly in the thickets, their songs tentative, cautious. Beyond, the fields are alive with labor. Men guiding oxen through furrows, women bending low with baskets of seed, children running quick with laughter sharp against the hush. Some pause to watch, lifting hands in blessing. Others turn away, muttering about beggars and wanderers. The pilgrim lowers his gaze, accepts both with bowed head, and walks on. By mid-morning the mist begins to thin, the sky lightening to a soft, pale grey. The road rises into hills, the incline pulling heavily upon weary legs. Sandals slip in mud, cloaks cling with dampness, breaths grow louder, but the line holds steady. The pilgrim leans hard upon his staff, his lips moving fey. Each step offered as devotion, each mile endured as sacrifice. At the crest they pause to breathe, gazing out across valleys spread wide with fields and villages, rivers coiling pale in the distance. The shrine itself remains unseen, but its promise lingers in the pull of the horizon. Here a small chapel waits, its stone walls mottled with moss, its roof sagging but steadfast. Within, the air is cool, smelling of wax and damp stone, the light dim, the silence deep. The pilgrims kneel, knees pressing into flagstones polished by generations. The pilgrim bows his head, his words a whisper, his prayer less for miracles than for strength to rise, to walk, to endure. A copper coin clinks softly upon the altar, left behind like a fragment of himself, before he stands once more. The descent carries them into woodland, where branches weave overhead, and the world narrows to dim light and damp earth. The path twists, roots rising like ropes across its surface. Stones, sandals, birds call faintly, the flutter of wings breaking the hush, but otherwise the silence is unbroken, thick as prayer. The pilgrims walk in rhythm, their breaths and steps merging with the forest itself. Here, the act of walking feels less like travel and more like ritual, each step a bead in an endless rosary. At midday, the forest opens to a clearing where a stream runs cold and clear. They kneel to drink, water spilling bright across their hands, flasks filled, faces split. Broken, passed in silence, softened in the stream before being eaten slowly, carefully, as if each crumb were precious. The pilgrim sits upon a stone, watching the water run, his mind emptied, his body weary but steady. For a brief span, the hardship eases, the burden lightens, before the road calls again. The afternoon carries them through open meadows, where grasses bend in the breeze, their seed heads glistening pale. Bees move lazily between flowers, the hum faint beneath the sound of sandals. Villagers work in fields, pausing to watch the procession, some nodding, some frowning, some offering nothing but silence. The pilgrim accepts it all with bowed head, his staff steady in his grip. The journey has stripped him of expectation. Endurance alone remains. As evening draws near, the sky darkens once more, clouds gathering heavy above. The air thickens, the wind sharpens, the promise of rain close. The pilgrims quicken their pace, their line bending across the land, seeking the shelter that waits in the next cluster of cottages. At last, Lamps glow faintly in the distance, smoke rising from chimneys, dogs barking in greeting. Barn doors open, straw offered, corners of inns filled with bardies pressed close. The pilgrim finds his place among them, cloak drawn tight, staff set at his side. Supper is meagre, a bowl of thin pottage, bread broken and softened in broth, but it warms enough to ease the ache of hunger. Around him, voices murmur prayers, Rosa. Bead through tired hands, children settle against their mothers, drifting into sleep. The barn grows quiet, broken only by the shifting of beasts below, the low creak of beams, the faint stir of wind outside. When darkness deepens, rain begins again, steady and patient, falling into the night without end. The pilgrim lies back, eyes heavy, his thoughts dissolving into the rhythm of water upon roof and earth. Sleep comes slowly, but it comes. Tomorrow the cycle will begin again. Pray, endure. The shrine is still far, still unseen, but the road itself has become holy. Each step is its own offering, each mile its own prayer. And so the pilgrim rests, and the rain falls, and the road waits, stretching ever onward, eternal as faith itself. The morning arrives in silence, as if the earth itself is holding its breath. The storm of the night has passed, leaving behind a world washed clean, every surface glistening with dew, every leaf heavy with droplets that cling. Fall with a soft patter to the ground. Within the barn, bardies stir from the straw, slow movements, groans of stiff muscles, the shuffle of feet searching for sandals. The pilgrim blinks against the faint light spilling through the gaps in the walls, his limbs heavy, his back sore, but his spirit steady. He rises, pulls his cloak close, and takes his staff once more in hand. When the door swings open, the air is cool and sharp, filled with the scent of wet earth and wood smoke rising from early. Fires. The village is quiet but not lifeless. A woman bends to draw water from a well, her shawl pulled tight against the morning chill. A man tends to his oxen, guiding them with soft words as they lumber toward the fields. A child stands barefoot in the mud, clutching a crust of bread in her small hand, which she presses into a pilgrim's palm before darting back to her doorway. The pilgrim accepts the gift with a bow, his lips moving in a quiet prayer of thanks, then steps. Path stretches slick and shining, bordered by hedges heavy with moisture. The pilgrims fall into their rhythm, staffs striking earth, sandals slapping against the softened road, breaths puffing faintly in the cool air. Cloaks sway with each step, rosaries clink softly, prayers murmur beneath the hush of the morning. The pilgrim lowers his gaze, his eyes fixed upon the ground before him, his mind dissolving into the rhythm of walking. By mid-morning, the mist lifts, revealing a countryside spread. Wide and green, fields stretch toward distant hills, sheep grazing in clusters, their bells chiming faintly. Shepherds call softly to their dogs, guiding flocks with whistles and gestures. Farmers bend low over their furrows, pausing only to glance at the line of travelers that passes like a slow-moving river across the land. Some lift their hands in blessing, others remain silent, their eyes unreadable. The pilgrim accepts both alike, steady in his steps, steady in his silence. The rock. Steadily into higher ground, pulling heavily at tired legs. Sandals slip against stones slick with water, cloaks grow heavy with sweat, and staffs bear the weight of bardies that lean hard upon them. Yet no one falters. Each step is another offering, another act of devotion pressed into the soil. The pilgrim feels the ache in his shoulders, the throb in his feet, but he does not allow himself to linger on pain. He lets it flow through him like the wind, acknowledging it, carrying it, surrendering to it. At the crest of a ridge, the company pauses. The land spreads vast before them, a tapestry of fields and rivers, villages clustered close around their churches, smoke rising in thin grey lines. The horizon is hazy, the shrine unseen, yet its presence is felt in the pull of the road, in the certainty that every step draws them nearer. Some pilgrims kneel, whispering prayers. Others simply gaze in silence, letting the sight fill them with quiet strength. The pilgrim bows his head, resting both hands upon his staff, his lips moving faintly in prayer for endurance. Beyond the ridge stands a small chapel, its stones worn smooth, its door weathered and scarred. The pilgrims file inside, filling the narrow space with their presence. The air is cool, heavy with the scent of wax and damp stone. Candles burn faintly upon the altar, their flames trembling with each draught. Knees press into flagstones, lips move in whispered prayers. The pilgrim lowers himself slowly. The cold of the stones seep into his bones. His prayer is simple, wordless even, only the wish for strength for one more day, for one more mile. When he rises, a copper coin drops softly onto the altar, a small fragment of devotion left behind. The descent leads into woodland, where the canopy closes overhead and the path narrows. Light filters through in pale shafts, dappling the ground, shifting with the breeze. The air is filled with the scent of pine, of wet leaves, of earth that has deep of rain. Birds call faintly, their voices sharp against the hush, and squirrels dart along branches, their movements quick and bright. The pilgrims walk softly, their footsteps muffled by the damp ground, their breaths shallow, their silence merging with the forest itself. The pilgrim feels the rhythm of the road become prayer, his steps beads upon a rosary strung by the earth. At midday, the woodland opens to a meadow where a stream runs cold and clear. They kneel along its banks, dipping. Flasks, cupping hands, splashing water onto their faces. The pilgrim slips off his sandals, placing his feet into the flow, sighing as the chill soothes the ache of blisters. Bread is brought from satchels, hard and stale, broken into pieces, softened in the water before being eaten. A woman produces an onion, cutting it into thin slices, passing them along the line until all have tasted. A boy laughs softly as the water splashes him, hushed gently by his father. For a brief span, rests, their burdens eased by food, water, and one another's presence. When they rise, the afternoon stretches long and weary. The road winds between fields golden with grain, villagers bending low with scythes, their blades flashing in the pale light. Some raise their heads to watch, sweat streaking their brows, hands pausing upon their tools. A few call blessings, others offer nothing, their gazes lingering silently. The pilgrims move on, their line steady, their silence unbroken. As evening nears, clouds gather once more, thick and dark. The wind sharpens, carrying the smell of rain, the sound of distant thunder. The pilgrims press forward, their pace quickening, their eyes fixed upon the faint glow of cottages ahead. Dogs bark as they approach, children run to gates, women call blessings, some pressing food into waiting hands. Doors open, barns are offered, corners of inns filled with bardies pressed close. The pilgrim finds straw once more, warmth rising from anima. Voices murmuring softly as travelers settle into sleep. Supper is meager, bread softened in broth, a sip of ale passed along, water drawn fresh from a well. But it is enough to quiet hunger. The pilgrim lies back, his cloak drawn close, his staff beside him, listening as the barn grows still. Rain begins again, soft at first, then steady, pattering upon roof and earth, weaving into the silence like a second heartbeat. Eyes close, breath steadies, and sleep takes him once more. As it always does, with grey light and damp earth, with sandals striking mud and staffs tapping in rhythm. The shrine remains unseen, distant, but the road itself is already holy, each step another prayer, each mile another act of devotion. The pilgrim dreams of nothing, only the sound of rain, the feel of the road, the certainty that it stretches always onward, endless as faith itself. The night wears itself thin with the sound of rain, a steady drumming against the barn roof, until storm seems to tire. By the time the first color of dawn seeps into the sky, the clouds have broken, and a pale light spreads across the land. Within the barn, pilgrims stir once more. The soft rustle of cloaks, the muffled cough of one grown sick, the creak of timbers as bodies rise from straw. The pilgrim opens his eyes, every limb aching, yet his heart steady in its rhythm. He gathers his satchel, tightens the strap across his shoulder, and lifts his staff from where it rests. Night. The door swings wide, and cool morning air floods in. Mist lies low over the village, curling in alleys, veiling cottages, softening the outlines of fields. The pilgrims file into the lane in silence, their lines stretching thin and long, sandals striking damp earth, staffs tapping softly in time. The pilgrim lowers his gaze, each step another offering, each breath another prayer. The road climbs steadily from the valley, bordered by hedges dripping with dew. Birds call faintly from within, their voices sharp against the hush. Beyond, fields glisten wet, furrows shining with water, oxen pulling heavy plows through soil still sodden from the storm. Farmers pause, leaning on tools, watching the line of travelers pass. Some lift hands in blessing, others look on in silence. The pilgrim accepts both alike, bowing his head, his lips moving faintly. By mid-morning, the mist has thinned, and the land lies wide beneath a soft, grey sky. Sheep graze upon hillsides there. Chiming faintly, shepherds guiding them with whistles. The pilgrims climb slowly, their breaths heavy, sandals dragging, staffs pressed deep into the ground for support. At the crest, they pause, gazing out across the vastness. Rivers glinting pale as silver, church towers pricking the horizon, villages huddled against the wind. Somewhere beyond lies the shrine, distant still, unseen yet certain. The pilgrim rests both hands upon his staff, whispering a prayer not for miracles, but for the strength to take another step and another after that. A chapel stands here, its stones rough and moss-grown, its door scarred but steadfast. Within, the air is cool and still, the silence deep as water. Candles burn faintly on the altar, their flames trembling. Knees bend upon cold stone, lips murmur prayers, hands clutch rosaries. The pilgrim kneels, his forehead pressing against the flagstone, his prayer as much silence as words. When he rises, he leaves a coin behind, small and before stepping once more into the light. The road descends into woodland, where branches weave thick above, the air dim and cool. The path twists between roots and stones, sandals slipping, staffs striking steady rhythm. The forest holds its breath, broken only by the call of a bird, the rustle of unseen creatures. The pilgrims move softly, their silence blending with the hush, each step a verse in an endless psalm. At midday, the woodland breaks to a meadow where a spring bubbles bright. The earth. The pilgrims kneel, cupping water into their mouths, filling flasks, washing dust from their faces. Bread is brought forth, broken and passed, hard crusts softened in the spring's flow. The pilgrim chews slowly, his eyes upon the water, its ripples carrying light like silver threads. For a brief while, hunger eases, thirst quiets, and the road feels gentler. The afternoon stretches long, the path weaving across fields and through villages. Children run to gates, some waving, some staring wide-eyed. Women offer water, men press apples or onions into hands, gifts small but weighty. Others turn away, their faces closed, their voices hard. The pilgrim accepts all, his steps steady, his staff sure. Pain in his feet, ache in his shoulders, hunger gnawing, none of it halts him. The journey is not for comfort, it is for endurance. As the sun sinks, the sky deepens to a heavier gray. The wind rises, bending grass, carrying the scent of rain once more. The pilgrims. Steps, the glow of cottages flickering faintly ahead. Dogs bark in greeting, smoke drifts from chimneys, lamps glow faintly in windows. Doors open, barns offered, corners of inns filled. The pilgrim lays himself down upon straw, his cloak drawn close, his staff at his side. Supper is plain, bread and broth, but it warms and it is enough. Night gathers. The barn grows quiet, filled with the breath of sleepers, the murmur of one last prayer whispered into darkness. Outside, soft at first, then steady, falling as endlessly as the road itself. The pilgrim lies back, listening, his eyes closing slowly. Tomorrow will bring the same, the waking, the walking, the praying, the enduring. The shrine remains distant, unseen, yet it waits as it has always waited, as it always will. The journey itself has become the shrine, each step the prayer, each mile the offering. And so he sleeps, while rain falls steady upon roof and earth, and the road stretches onward into without end.